Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we'll be working on matrices and their determinants. So our focus on the determinant today will be on the 2 by 2 matrices and 3 by 3 matrices. Now let's start with the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix. So starting with this, a 2 by 2 matrix is a matrix that has 2 rows and 2 columns. So now let's assume matrix A has the following elements. We have A, B, C, and D. So let's assume matrix A has this following elements, A, B, C, and D. Now we have to look for the determinant of A. So the determinant of A can be denoted as this, or we can say DETA. So we can actually denote the determinant of A as this or DETA. So now let's look for the determinant of this 2 by 2 matrix. So I'm going to be working with letters here because if you can see, the elements I filled in this matrix is A, B, C, and D. So if we can actually know the steps of solving the determinant of this given letters or elements here, we can apply that to solving with numbers. That means a matrix filled with numbers. So the following step to follow is we'll start by having our plus and minus sign at the top. So if we have a 3 by 3 matrix, it's going to be plus, minus, plus. So the sign we're going to start with will be the plus sign, then minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. If we have up to 4 by 4 matrix, it's going to be plus, minus, plus, minus. So for a 2 by 2 matrix, we're going to be having just plus and minus at the top of the first row. So this is the first row, this is the row, let's not forget, and this is what the column is. So at the top of the first row, we're going to have our plus and minus sign because we're dealing with a 2 by 2 matrix. Now to get a determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix, so determinant of A is going to be, we're going to get the diagonals, we're going to multiply the diagonals of these letters. That means A will multiply D. A will multiply D. So it's going to be A times D. And then this sign here, we'll have plus here. It's definitely going to give us a plus sign here. So there's no point putting the sign because plus and you not having any sign here is actually the same thing. That means the product of A and D is positive. So for the other part, we want to work with the diagonals of B and C. But we should take note that we'll have a minus here. So meaning that we're going to put a minus sign here before we get the diagonal. So the diagonal, we're going to multiply B and C. We're going to multiply B and C. So which is what we'll have here? B times C. So the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix is AD minus BC. So this is because we are using letters for an example. I'm using letters for an example. So meaning whenever we have a 2 by 2 matrix, the first thing we'll have to do is to multiply the diagonal. That means the one coming from the left side, that's this one coming from the left side, or we can say the first row. Yeah, the first row, which is A, the first element in the first row, or the first element in the first column. Yeah, A is the first element in the first row, and A is also the first element in the first column. So we're going to multiply that one, we're going to get the diagonal of that one, which is A and D. Then we'll multiply them, then we're going to get the difference of the second diagonal. So the second diagonal is B and C. The second diagonal is B and C. So A times D minus B times C is going to give us AD minus BC. So now let's solve some examples. So we can practice this determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix with numbers instead of the letters we worked with here. So examples. So for given number 1, if matrix A is equal to, so if matrix A is equals to 2, 3, 1, 2, we have to find the determinant. Find the determinant of A. So now let's get the determinant of A. So recall the first thing we have to do, judging from what we've done at the top, is to put the sign here, which is plus and minus. So remember, you're putting the sign at the first row. This is the first row of this matrix. So the sign will be at the top of the first row. So the next thing we have to now focus on is to multiply the diagonals. So we're going to start with the first element in the row and column. So this is the first row, this is the first column, this is the first row, this is the first column. So the first element we have there is the number 2. So we're going to multiply number 2 with a diagonal. We have to find it. So the diagonal here is going to be 2 times 2. We're going to take that first. So the determinant of A, we can denote it as this, or we can say DETA. So the determinant of A is going to be the first product of the diagonal there is 2 times 2. Then the next thing we'll have to do is to bring in the sign, because for the second diagonal it has a minus sign. So we'll have minus, then the second diagonal there is 3 times 1, 3 times 1, 3 times 1. Now 2 times 2 gives us the value 4, minus 3 times 1 gives us the value 3. So we are left with 4 minus 3. So therefore, the determinant of A is 4 minus 3 is 1. So the determinant of A is 1. Now let's move to number 2. Let's have another example. So for example 2, if matrix C is the following elements, so let's have the elements here. So we'll have 2, 3, 1, minus 5. So find the determinant. Find the determinant of C. Find the determinant of C. So just as we did earlier, the first thing we'll have to do is to put in the sign on the first row. We'll have the plus and then we have the minus. The plus and the minus. So now let's multiply the first diagonal. It's going to be 2 times minus 5. 2 times minus 5. Let's have that in a bracket. Then we'll have the sign for the second diagonal is minus. The sign for the second diagonal is minus. So minus, then we'll have 3 times 1. 3 times 1. So multiplying this, 2 times minus 5 gives us minus 10. And then we'll have a minus sign here. 3 times 1 gives us 3. So the answer or the determinant of C is minus 10 minus 3 gives us minus 13. Minus 10 minus 3 gives us minus 13. So the determinant of this matrix C is minus 13. I hope we're getting this. So we've been able to solve 2 examples on the 2 by 2 matrices. Now let's move to the determinant of the 3 by 3 matrices. So far, if you have any question on this determinant of matrix of 2 by 2, you can drop it at the comment section. I will attend to that. So now let's move forward. So here we'll have the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. So a 3 by 3 matrix is a matrix that has an element of 3 columns and 3 rows. So 3 columns and 3 rows. So now let's say, for instance, matrix A. Let's say, for instance, matrix A has the following elements of A1, B1, C1, and then we'll have A2, B2, C2, and let's say we'll have A3, B3, and C3. So I'm actually working with the letters, small letter A, B, and C to denote the elements. So the 1 here stands for this is the first row, and then the 2 here stands for this is the second row, and the 3 here stands for this is the third row. So this is a 3 by 3 matrix. A 3 by it has 3 rows. These are the 3 rows, and then it also has 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. So this is what a 3 by 3 matrix looks like. Now let's find the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. Remember, the first thing we'll have to do is to put in the sign. So I said we're going to be starting with the plus, minus, and plus. Plus, minus, and plus. So after we've denoted the sign where they are meant to be, after we place the sign where they are meant to be. So the next thing we have to do is to reduce this to a 2 by 2 matrix. Reduce to a 2 by 2 matrix. So 2 by 2 matrix also means 2 times 2. We can actually use that, or we can use this. Reduce to a 2 by 2 matrix. So remember, I'm working with A1 first. I'm going to remove the rows and column associated with it. So the rows and column associated with A1 is this, because this is the row where we'll have our A1, and this is the column where we'll have our A1 also. So if I'm going to remove all these elements, I'm removing all these elements. The elements we are left with, this is what we are seeing. B2, C2, we are seeing this. This is the elements we have left. B2, C2, B3, C3. This is the elements we have left. So I'm going to use A1 to multiply this 2 by 2 matrix. I'm going to use A1 to multiply these 2 by 2 matrices. So now let's write that. So this is it. This is the 2 by 2 matrix we've gotten that we'll be multiplying with A1. B2, C2, B3, C3. Now we'll move to the next element of the first row. The next element of the first row is B1. The next element of the first row is B1. So remember, the sign at the top of the B1 is minus. The sign at the top of the B1 is the minus. So we're going to go with the sign. So we'll be having minus B1. So now we're going to remove the rows and column associated with B1. The rows and column associated with B1, this is the row associated with B1, and then this is the column associated with B1. This is the row associated with B1, and this is the row associated with B1. So the next thing I have to do is to multiply this B1 by the remaining elements we have. So we have A2, C2, A3, C3. A2, C2, A3, C3. So now let's multiply. So it's going to be A2, C2, A3, C3. I hope we're getting this. So now let's move to the last element in the first row. The last element here is plus C1. So we'll have plus. So we'll have plus C1. So now let's remove the element associated with C1. Let's remove the element associated with C1. That means in the row and column. So for the row, these are the elements associated with C1, and for the column, these are the elements associated with C1. So now we're going to multiply C1 by the 2 by 2 matrices we have left, which is A2, B2, A3, B3. A2, B2, A3, B3. So now let's multiply that. A2, B2, A3, B3. Good. So we've been able to form a 2 by 2 matrices from this 3 by 3 matrix. So from what we've done at the 2 by 2 matrix, we already know how to get a determinant of 2 by 2 matrix. And what am I going to do? I'm going to put a plus and minus here, plus and minus here, plus and minus. So now we have to get the determinant of the 2 by 2 matrix we have now. So for A1, we have a 2 by 2 matrix here. For B1, we have a 2 by 2 matrix here. And for C1, we also have a 2 by 2 matrices. So now we've denoted the signs for the first element. That means the element on the first row. We've denoted the signs plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. We now have to multiply by diagonals. So remember what we've done at the 2 by 2 matrix. Let's implement that here. So remember, A1 is multiplying. A1 is multiplying this matrix. So it's going to be A1, then in a bracket. So the first diagonal here is B2 times C3. B2 times C3. B2 times C3. Let's have that in a bracket. And then we'll have a minus sign here. We'll have a minus for the second diagonal. which is going to be minus, and then the second diagonal is going to be C2 times B3. C2 times B3. Now let's move to the second one. The second one is minus B1. So close this bracket, then minus B1. So for minus B1, our elements are A2 times C3. We have A2 times C3. We're going to be subtracting because the second diagonal has a minus, then the second diagonal here is C2 times A3. C2 times A3. So we'll close this bracket and we'll move to the C1 plus C1. Remember, this is it, plus C1. So now we get the determinant of the 2 by 2 matrix. We're multiplying by C1. So the first diagonal there is A2 times B3. A2 times B3. So we'll open a bracket, we'll have A2 times B3, and then we're going to be subtracting by, remember there's a minus here, so the second diagonal is, we'll have B2 times A3. B2 times A3. We'll close the brackets. So now the determinant of A, remember we're looking for the determinant of capital letter A. So we'll have here, we'll have A1 in a bracket, B2 times C3 is B2C3, and then we'll have minus, here we'll have C2 times B3, we're going to have C2B3, we'll close that bracket, then we'll go to the other side, minus B1, open a bracket, so the product of A2 times C3 is A2C3, then minus the product of C2 times A3 is C2A3, then plus the last one there is plus C1, then the determinant there is A2 times B3 is A2B3, then minus we'll have B2 times A3, which is going to give us B2A3. So this is what it is like to get the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. So if actually we are given a number to work with, we are going to multiply it. Let's say we are given 1 times 2 for B2 and C3. 1 times 2 is 2. Then minus whatever we are given here also. So whatever we get in this difference, whatever we get for this subtraction, we're going to multiply by A1. And whatever we get for this subtraction, we're going to multiply by B1. Whatever we get for this subtraction, we're going to get by C1. And then you can either add or subtract depending on the sign given. So this is how to get a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. Now let's solve the following example so we can practice what we've done. So examples. For number 1, we'll have if B is equal to, so if matrix B is equal to these values, we have 8, 1, 1, 6, minus 1, 2, 14, 5, minus 7. Find the determinant of B. Find the determinant of B. So the first thing we'll have to do here is to reduce this to a 2 by 2 matrix. So judging from what we just finished doing, you know what to do. So the first thing we'll have to put a sign here, which is the plus, minus, plus. So after the plus, minus, plus, we're going to take the first row. The elements in the first row, we're going to multiply them by forming a 2 by 2 matrix from the remaining elements. So the first one I want to work with is the plus 8. So we'll be having 8, then a 2 by 2 matrix will be forming. Let's have it here. So what are the matrices we're going to be forming? So we're going to remove the row and column associated with the number 8. So this is the row and this is the column. This is the row, this is the column associated with the number 8. So now we are left with this. We are left with minus 1, 2, 5, and minus 7. We are left with minus 1, 2, 5, and minus 7. So we're going to fill up this matrix with minus 1, 2, 5, and minus 7. So let's have it. Minus 1, 2, 5, and minus 7. So we'll move to the next element for the first row, which is the minus 1. Remember, we're going to be working with the sign, which are at the top of the element. So minus 1, we'll have minus 1. So let's provide the 2 by 2 matrix we're going to be working with. So remember, the law is we're going to remove the rows and column associated with that particular number. So for number 1, the rows, this is the rows associated with the number 1, and this is the column associated with the number 1. So what we're going to do now, we're going to work with, we have 6 and 14 here, and we'll have 2 and minus 7. So we're going to be working for the row 6 to 14 minus 7. 6 to 14 minus 7. So let's have that. 6 to 14 and minus 7. Now we'll move to the last element here, which is plus 1. So the last element on the first row is plus 1. So we'll have plus 1 plus 1. Now let's provide the 2 by 2 matrix. So remember, we are going to remove the rows and column associated with the 1, with the plus 1. So this is the rows associated with the plus 1, and this is the column associated with the plus 1. So now we are left with 6 minus 1, 14, and 5. 6 minus 1, 14, and 5. 6 minus 1, 14, and 5. So the next thing we'll have to do is to look for the determinant of the 2 by 2 matrix we've formed now, so that we can be able to multiply it by the first rows we have there. The first rows are the 8, minus 1, and plus 1. So now let's look for the determinant of the 2 by 2 matrix. So we'll have our plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, and minus. So this is going to be 8 in a bracket. Then let's have our inner brackets for the product of the diagonals. So minus 1 times minus 7 is what we're going to have first. Minus 1 times minus 7. Then we'll have our minus sign. Let's not forget that. Minus sign for the second diagonal. Then the second diagonal will have 2 times 5. 2 times 5. So let's close this bracket and go to the next one, which is minus 1. So we'll open a bracket and look for the determinant. So remember, we're working with this now, minus 1. So the first diagonal here is 6 times minus 7. So we have 6 times minus 7. And then we are going to look for the difference of the second diagonal. So minus the second diagonal is 2 times 14. 2 times 14. So we'll close this bracket and we'll move to the next one, which is plus 1. So plus 1, then we'll open a bracket for the determinant of that 2 by 2 matrix. So we have 6 times 5, which is the first diagonal. 6 times 5. Then minus the second diagonal. Remember, because we have this minus sign here. So minus the second diagonal. The second diagonal is minus 1 times 14. Minus 1 times 14. Now we'll have to simplify this. So this is going to be equal to 8 in a bracket. Minus 1 times minus 7. Minus 1 times minus 7 is plus 7. So we'll have minus on the other end. 2 times 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So we'll move to the next bracket, minus 1, then the bracket. So here we'll have 6 times minus 7, which is going to give us minus 42, minus 42. And then we'll have our minus, then the second bracket, which is 2 times 14. 2 times 14 is 28. Now let's close this bracket and move to the next one, plus 1. We'll open a bracket. So 6 times 5 gives us 30. And then we'll have minus. Okay, we'll have minus. Then minus 1 times 14. Minus 1 times 14 gives us minus 14. But let's not forget to have minus times minus here. Minus times minus. And minus times minus gives us plus. So I'm going to remove the minus and put a plus sign there. Remember, minus times minus, that means this minus and minus gives us a plus sign. So now let's simplify further. So now we have 8 in a bracket. 7 minus 10 is minus 3. 7 minus 10 is minus 3. Then we'll have minus 1. Simplifying the second bracket, we'll have minus 42 minus 28, which is going to give us minus 70. So we'll have plus 1. Then the second bracket, we'll have 30 plus 14, which is going to give us 44. So we are going to multiply by the values we have outside the bracket. So 8 times minus 3. 8 times minus 3 gives us minus 24. 8 times minus 3 gives us minus 24. And then we'll have minus 1 times minus 70. Minus 1 times minus 70. Remember the minus times minus sign is plus. Then 1 times 70 is 70. Then we'll have plus 1 times 44. 1 times 44 gives us 44. So working with this, our answer is minus 24 plus 70 plus 44 gives us 90. This gives us 90. So therefore, our determinant of B is 90. I hope we get this. Now, let's move to another example. So for example 2, we have find the determinants. So for this question, we have find the determinant of m, which is equals to the following elements: 2, 0, 1, 1 minus 1, 2, 0, 3, 2. So solving for the determinant of m, we have to place the sign on the first row, which is plus, minus, plus, plus, minus, plus. So the next thing we have to do is to multiply the first rows, the elements of the first row by the 2 by 2 matrix we are going to get. So meaning we have to reduce this 3 by 3 matrices to a 2 by 2 matrix. Now the first element here is 2. So we are going to have 2, and then the matrix I will love us to form for 2. So we are going to remove the rows and column associated with the number 2. So removing the rows and the column associated with the number 2, now we are left with minus 1, 2, 3, and 2. We are left with minus 1, 2, 3, and 2. So now let's fill this element in the 2 by 2 matrix we are forming for the number 2. So we have minus 1, 2, 3, and 2. So now we'll move to the next element on the first row. The next one is we'll have our minus 0. So minus 0, and then the 2 by 2 matrix will be forming. So we're going to be removing the rows and column associated with the number 0. We're going to be removing the rows. This is the rows associated with the number 0, and this is the column associated with the number 0. So now we are left with 1, 0, 2, 2. 1, 0, 2, 2. So let's have that. Let's fill it up. 1, 0, 2, 2. So now we'll move to the last element on the first row. So the last element on the first row is plus 1. So let's have it here, plus 1. Then the 2 by 2 matrix we are going to be forming for plus 1. So now going back to the 3 by 3 matrix, let's remove the rows and column associated with the plus 1. So this is a row associated with plus 1, and this is a column associated with plus 1. So now we are left with 1 minus 1, 0, 3. 1 minus 1, 0, 3. So let's have it. 1 minus 1, 0, 3. So the next thing we'll have to do here is to place the sign on these 2 by 2 matrices we formed now. Plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. So now let's get the determinant for the 2 by 2 matrix before we can multiply them to the elements in the first row. So now I have 2 in a bracket, then the determinant. So the first thing I have here is, for the first diagonal, we'll have minus 1 times 2. Minus 1 times 2. And then we'll have minus the second diagonal. Minus, then the second diagonal will have 2 times 3. The second diagonal will have 2 times 3. So we'll move to the next element here, which is minus 0. We'll have minus 0. So let's form a bracket. Now for the first diagonal of this element, we'll have 1 times 2. We'll have 1 times 2. Then minus the second diagonal. The second diagonal is 2 times 0. So we'll have minus 2 times 0. Now let's close this bracket. We'll move to the third one, plus 1. So plus 1, then the 2 by 2 matrix. So let's have our brackets. Now the first diagonal will have 1 times 3. 1 times 3. Then we'll have minus the second diagonal. For the second diagonal, we'll have minus 1 times 0. For the second diagonal, we'll have minus 1 times 0. So now let's simplify what we have in the back bracket so we can be able to get the determinant of 2 and multiply by the element of the first row. Now we have 2 in a bracket. We'll have minus 1 times 2 here. So minus 1 times 2 is minus 2. Let's have our minus sign, and the next thing we'll have here is 2 times 3. 2 times 3 gives us 6. So we'll close this bracket. You will notice from this place, you observe that we'll have 0 multiplied by this 2 by 2 matrix. So whatever I get here, 1 times 2 gives me 2. 2 times 0 gives me 0. So if I subtract, I'll be getting 2. Then my answer, 2 multiplied by this 0, will give me 0. So there's no point looking for the determinant, or there's no point we breaking it down like this. There's no point, because at the end of the day, we're going to be getting 0, because when we multiply 0 by 2, which we got here, it is going to give us 0. So let's have our minus 0 there, and we'll move to the third one. So for the third one, we'll have plus 1 in a bracket. So we'll have 1 times 3, which is going to give us 3. Then we'll have minus, the next thing there is minus 1 times 0. Minus 1 times 0 is 0. Minus 1 times 0 is 0. So now let's proceed. We are very close to getting the determinant of m. So 2 in a bracket, this 2 in a bracket will have minus 2 minus 6. Minus 2 minus 6 gives us minus 8. So let's not work with this again. Minus 0 is nothing. So let's move to this one, which is going to be plus 1. Then in a bracket, we'll have 3 minus 0. 3 minus 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. So the determinant of m is equal to 2 times minus 8 gives us minus 16, plus, then we'll have 1 times 3 gives us 3. So the determinant of m is equal to minus 16 plus 3 is minus 13. Minus 16 plus 3 gives us a minus 13, which is the answer for this determinant of m. Which is the answer for the determinant of m. So we've been able to solve 2 questions on the 3 by 3 matrices. So I believe we actually get, or we've actually understood the method involved in solving the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix and the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. I'll leave us to this question. I believe we should be able to solve it with what we've learned so far. Practices. So I want you to practice just these two questions. Whatever you get, drop it at the comment section. I will go through your work. So if B is equal to the matrix of 0, 1, 1, minus 1, you have to find the determinant of B. And then the second question you should practice is if n is equal to, we have 1, 1, 8, 1 minus 1, 6, 3, 5, 14. So this is a 3 by 3 matrix. So if n is equal to this, you have to find the determinant of n. Find the determinant of n. Drop your answer at the comment section. Then I'll actually go through your steps and your working, then guide you if you actually miss a step. But definitely you're not going to miss anything because we've actually learned a lot on the determinant of a 2 by 2 and a 3 by 3 matrix. Thank you for joining me in today's class. If you've stayed to this point, please do well to like the video, share it to your friends and loved one, and hit the subscribe button. Yeah, give us a subscription. So you should also turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified when we drop our next video. See you in my next class. Bye.